We are constantly brainwashed into believing that Antarctica is just a giant, harmless freezer at the bottom of the world, a place where penguins mess around for entertainment and a few depressed scientists sit counting snow to pass the day. But try using that rusting brain of yours to ask a simple question. Why is a landmass larger than Europe, a frozen monster, sitting smugly right there, blockaded by governments as tightly as a murder scene? What would happen if I told you that that ice wall isn't the end of the map, but a gateway leading to insane worlds that your textbooks never dared to print? Forgotten civilizations, prehistoric monsters, or even a monstrous planetary structure stacked on top of each other like a roly-poly toy. None of this is a fairy tale. They are lying in wait behind that cold velvet curtain, mocking the narrow understanding of mankind. Pull your chair closer and put your helmet on, because today we are jumping the fence to the other side of the world. Welcome back to Dark History. I am Zorro, and let's see just how deep this rabbit hole really goes. Welcome to the edge of sanity. Let's talk about that giant refrigerator in our backyard, Antarctica. 5,500,000 square miles, 40% larger than the entire old continent of Europe combined. Coordinate minus 69.6 latitude, longitude 0. Sounds majestic, doesn't it? But let's be honest with each other. What the hell do you actually know about it? I bet the conversation in your 5th grade geography class went something like this. You, teacher, why does no one live in Antarctica? Teacher, in a boring, monotone voice. Because it's cold, Johnny. Very cold. Only penguins and a few bored scientists counting snowflakes are there. Now sit down and color this map. Sparsely populated. That's the phrase they used. A wonderful euphemism for, don't even think about going near there if you want to live. Except for about 1,000 researchers shivering in isolated research stations. Nobody lives there. You can't buy a plane ticket there for backpacking. You can't just sail there to explore on your own. Why? Because of the Antarctic Treaty to protect the environment? Or is it for a darker reason that they, the guys sitting in airtight meeting rooms, don't want your little brain to visualize? What if I told you that that cold continent is actually just a ring, a boundary wall, a barbed wire fence made of ice to lock us in, or more terrifyingly, to stop something outside from flooding in? Imagine this. I'm sitting at a bar with you, and I say, "Hey buddy, on the other side of the ice wall isn't the abyss of space. There are millions of civilizations. There are giant spiders the size of skyscrapers taking a stroll. There are dragons. There are orcs. There are greedy goblins and even headless blemmies sharpening their axes waiting for war." How would you react? You. Zorro, you're drunk. Go home and sleep. No, listen to me. We are trapped. The world is much bigger. You. Call security. This guy is crazy. You think I'm crazy, right? Good. Hold on to that thought. Because like I said, we all have to be a little crazy to be sitting here at this hour listening to stories about gnomes building an empire right next to Antarctica. But before you turn off the video and go back to scrolling TikTok to watch dancing cats, let me smash the model of the green globe that NASA has pasted onto your brain. Forget flat Earth. Forget hollow Earth. The true shape of our world looks like a snowman. Don't laugh. I'm dead serious. Picture our universe as a giant snowman, consisting of spherical planets stacked on top of each other, connected via the poles. And where are we? Arrogant humanity, who thinks we are the navel of the universe. We are on the tiny head of the snowman. Earth, the known world, 7 continents, oceans, electricity bills, traffic jams, all packed into this tiny ball on top. But look down below. Right beneath your feet, through the permafrost of Antarctica, is the body of the Snowman. Another planet, another world. Its name is Atlas. Atlas isn't a resort island. It is a gigantic spherical monster, twice the size of our Earth. And if you think Atlas is the limit, then look at the bottom, the base of the Snowman, the largest, greatest planetary celestial body, the foundation of this entire insane structure, Aupara. Aupara is so vast that it needs two separate suns orbiting it just to light up a small fraction of it. This trio, Earth, Atlas, Aupara, forms a planetary superstructure called Gineia. If you look from above like God looking down at a dinner plate, the tiny bullseye in the middle, that's us, Earth. The circle surrounding us, Atlas. And the gigantic outer ring, Aupara. Separating these worlds are ice rings, the thing we naively call Antarctica. And outside of Aupara, that is the wastes. A cosmic eggshell, where physics takes a vacation and chaos reigns, floating in a metaphysical fluid called ether. We are like bacteria living in the yolk of an egg, smug that we have discovered the whole world, while right in the egg white next door is an entire freakish universe that we know nothing about. While you are worrying about your boss yelling at you tomorrow, right beneath your feet, in Atlas, a magical war might be taking place between races that our ancestors once worshipped as gods. This video is the result of my back hunching over like a shrimp and my eyes blurring from reading thousands of pages of documents from the World Beyond the Ice Wall wiki. I sacrifice my spine so you don't have to. We often talk about extraterrestrials. What does this word mean? Extra Terra, beyond Earth. So what if they didn't come from Mars or Venus? What if the flying saucer you see on TV didn't fly down from the sky but flew up from Antarctica? What if aliens are actually just noisy neighbors from Atlas coming over to visit? Today, in this first part, we won't go too far just yet. We will focus on the first step of the journey, leaving the Snowman's head, crossing the ice wall, and setting foot on Atlas. Grab a can of Dr. Pepper, wrap yourself tight in a blanket because the temperature is about to drop deep. Open your eyes wide, don't blink. We are about to shatter the illusion of safety you are living in. Are you ready to see what is waiting on the other side of the wall? The gateway to Atlas is opening. All right, geniuses, we know we are living on the head of a giant snowman. We know beneath the ice is Atlas. But the million-dollar question here is, how the hell do we get out of here? You can't just walk out of prison, especially when this prison is guarded by what I call the global silence. Look at this. While Elon Musk is busy blowing billions of dollars trying to put humans on Mars, a dead rock floating in nothingness, the door to paradise, or hell, lies right under our noses. And they know it. According to leaked documents from Daredevil explorers and the World Beyond the Ice Wall wiki, the ice wall isn't a seamless, unbreakable block. It has cracks, passageways, gates. But don't dream about swirling purple magic portals like in Marvel movies. No, these are practical maritime channels, geographical crevices located between blocks of permafrost, leading straight from our ocean to the ocean of Atlas. And the most famous among them? The Summer Gate. Imagine a conversation between a fishing boat captain and the International Naval Force guarding this area. Captain: Hey, my compass is broken. I'm just drifting. Navy: Turn around immediately, or we will sink you for hitting an iceberg. You are entering the Area 51 of the ocean. Why are they afraid? Because going through the Summer Gate isn't just going to another sea, it's going to another era. As soon as you cross the boundary of the ice wall, the temperature starts to rise. The sky changes. The constellations you are familiar with begin to distort and vanish. giving way to the strange stars of the Atlas sky. And the first land that welcomes you? Welcome to the ancestral continent and its surrounding archipelagos. In Atlas, the laws of evolution aren't like in Darwin's textbooks. On Earth, we, Homo sapiens, won and wiped out all competitors. But in Atlas, we are just an appetizer. Let's talk about the inhabitants there. You think gnomes or goblins are just fairy tales to scare kids into eating their porridge? Dead wrong. In this lore system, they are real races with civilizations, armies, and their own bloody histories. Picture this. In Atlas, there are lands where dinosaurs never went extinct. They aren't the slow lizards in Jurassic Park. They have evolved. They are smarter, more brutal, and some are even used by local tribes as living tanks. And worse, giant insects. There are reports, or call them legends if you want, about forests in Atlas where the oxygen is so dense that spiders and dragonflies can grow as big as a car. Do you want to face a spider the size of a VinFast car? I don't. I'd rather stay here and pay off my credit card debt. But Atlas doesn't just have monsters. It has magnificent civilizations. There are rumors of the Republic of Thoth or radiant golden cities hidden behind the Horos Mountains, places where magic, or a form of advanced technology we can't comprehend, is the main energy source. Try imagining a diplomatic meeting. Earth ambassador. We have nuclear bombs and iPhone 15s. Atlas. Resident. That's cute. We have alchemy, war dragons, and we lived here 10,000 years before you guys knew how to use fire. Do you know what the irony is? Maybe the very gods in our Greek, Norse, or Egyptian mythology were actually travelers from Atlas visiting Earth in ancient times. Zeus, Odin, Ra. Maybe they weren't in the sky, they were just beneath us, on the body of the Snowman. But to get there, you have to get past the gatekeepers. And I'm not talking about humans. I'm talking about things living right at the border, the creatures guarding the ice wall. Why do you think there are no real photos of the edge of the world? Because the guys who captured them usually didn't come back to develop the film. We have stepped 1 foot off the Earth. Now brace yourselves, because in the next part, we are going even deeper. We are going to the bottom of madness. We will visit Aupara, the massive base of the world, where there are 2 suns and secrets that make Atlas look like just a playground for children. Too bright, isn't it? Get used to it. We have left the tiny head of Earth. We have passed through the chubby body of Atlas. And now, ladies and gentlemen, fasten your seatbelts, take your heart medication, because we are landing on the base of this monster. Welcome to Aupara. If Atlas is a giant continent, then Aupara is an endless ocean of land. It is so vast that a single sun, like the weak light bulb illuminating our Earth, is not enough. It needs 2 suns. You heard that right. In Aupara, the concept of sunset is a luxury. When this sun sets, the other sun might be rising. Or worse, both scorch the sky at the same time. A world without true darkness. A world where heat and light nourish things that are oversized. Do you remember I talked about the uniqueness of Earth? There is a detail in the World Beyond the Ice Wall wiki that gives me the chills. In this entire grand Gaia system, Earth is the only place with a moon. Think about that. Why? Why do we have a surveillance satellite hovering over our heads every night, while Atlas and Aupara do not? Is the moon a poetic friend of poets? Or is it a prison searchlight? An observation station to ensure the prisoners on the top floor don't try to escape downwards? But let's get back to Aupara. Because of the massive size and abundant energy from 2 suns, life here doesn't follow our rules of compact and cute. Here, we aren't talking about elephants or blue whales. We are talking about titans. If you dropped a T-Rex from Atlas into Aupara, it would look like a baby chick wandering into a mastiff's kennel. Aupara is the dwelling place of creatures that Earth legends call dragons, leviathans, sea entities that could swallow an entire U.S. aircraft carrier fleet with just one yawn. And the inhabitants there? Imagine a dialogue between you and an Aupara native. You. I come from Earth, we built the pyramids. Aupara resident. Ah, that pile of stacked rocks? That's cute. We just finished building a floating city out of crystal, and my pet is a 3-headed dragon. There are theories that the legendary civilizations that disappeared from Earth's history, like Atlantis, Lemuria, or Mu, they didn't sink into the sea. They didn't drown. They simply moved house. They migrated downstairs, down to where it's more spacious, down to Aupara. Why squeeze together fighting for every inch of land in the Middle East or Europe when you can own an entire continent in Aupara? This place contains millions of civilizations, from high magic kingdoms, warlike orc tribes, to steampunk cities running on laws of physics that would make Einstein pull his hair out. But greatness comes with chaos. Aupara is an eternal battlefield. With too many races, too much power, and endless resources, peace is an alien concept. Wars here aren't fought with guns and bullets. They are wars that alter terrain, summon storms, and control beasts. And we, the tiny humans on the top of the snowman's head, we are completely blind to these noisy neighbors. We are taught that the universe out there is a cold vacuum, so we never look down beneath our feet. Because if humanity knew that, right beneath the Antarctic ice is a paradise, or hell, 100 times larger than Earth, what do you think we would do? Would we obediently go to work from 9 to 5 to pay rent? No, we would break the wall, and that is exactly what they fear most. But Aupara is not the end point. There is still one more thing, something that encompasses it all. The eggshell, the final boundary separating existence from nothingness. Are you still there, or has your brain melted and leaked out of your ears? We went from the tiny head, Earth, slid down the potbelly Atlas, and got lost in the giant base Aupara. But if you are the type of person who always asks, and what comes after that? Here is the answer. Outside the outermost edge of Aupara, where the light of the two suns begins to fade, we encounter the wastes. Don't picture it as a land. Picture it as a system error, glitch. The wastes is the frontier of reality, where the laws of physics pack their bags and leave. Here, space expands infinitely but curves back into itself. Let's go back to the simplest image, the egg. Our entire Snowman universe, Earth, Atlas, Aupara, is the yolk. And the wastes? It is the eggshell, a casing that surrounds, protects, or imprisons us from the nothingness outside. And what fills the gap between the planets and that eggshell? Not the black vacuum of space. In this lore system, it is ether. Ether, the metaphysical glue. It keeps realities from falling apart. It's like water in a fish tank, and we are goldfishes swimming happily, completely unaware that our world is just a glass tank placed in a much larger, darker room. At this point, I know what you are thinking. You, Zorro, do you actually believe in this mess? Snowman, eggshell, giant spiders? Believe it or not, does it matter? Look at me. My eyes are tired. My back is hunching like a question mark from sitting and researching this damn map for weeks straight. Why do I do it? And why are you sitting there, listening to a stranger talk about orcs in Antarctica for the past 20 minutes? Because our real world, it's too boring. We go to work, pay bills, watch news about politics, and then die. Period. But the idea that right across that cold ice wall, there is a vibrant, dangerous, and magic-filled world, it makes the blood in our veins boil again, doesn't it? That is why I love these legends. Is there really a continent outside? Probably not. But sitting here contemplating it is a billion times more interesting than arguing about who will win the presidential election. I truly hope that one day Hollywood will scrap those boring remake sequels and adapt the story of the world beyond the ice wall into an epic movie. Imagine an expedition crossing the Summer Gate, fighting dinosaurs in Atlas and getting lost in a war between gods in Aupara. Amazing, right? But until that day comes, this video is your only ticket. So if you enjoyed this crazy ride with me, take a sip of Dr. Pepper, munch a handful of popcorn, pull your winter blanket up a little higher, and please leave a like for this video. Not for the YouTube algorithm, but like for my aching back. Like because we are dreamers who dare to look further than what the geography teacher taught. Have you ever wondered why your life is so dull? Why there are no dragons soaring over the skies of New York? Why you can't shoot lightning from your fingertips or see ghosts walking in the park every Sunday morning? The answer isn't because those things don't exist. It's because we are living in a cage woven by the most invisible, boring, and dense material in the universe, ether. Welcome back to Dark History. Today, throw your geography textbook in the trash. Better yet, burn it. Because what I am about to tell you will make the craziest conspiracy theories sound as logical as the multiplication table. Put your tinfoil hat on, because we are about to go down the rabbit hole. Imagine the Earth you live on, this tiny blue marble, is actually located at the highest level of a gigantic structure. At this altitude, the density of ether is at its thickest. What is ether? Think of it as the reality police. It keeps everything stable, sane, and boring. It enforces the laws of physics, it keeps gravity working, light shining straight, and ensures that when you drop an apple, it falls to the ground instead of turning into a purple frog. But, and here is a huge but, the deeper you go, penetrating the ice, going down to the lower levels of this universe, the thinner the ether becomes. And when the reality police is away, the monsters start to dance. Less ether means more magic, more chaos. The fabric of reality begins to crack. That is why, on Earth, supernatural phenomena like Bigfoot, ghosts, or prophecies only appear flickeringly like a TV channel with bad signal. Because the ether here is too strong, it suffocates those things, keeping them in the shadows. But down below, where we are going, magic isn't a fairy tale. It is the air you breathe. All right, I need you to focus. If you think Earth is a lonely rock floating in infinite space, you have been deceived. According to ancient documents that they don't want you to read, the true structure of our world looks like a snowman. That's right, you heard me. A damn snowman in the middle of the universe. On top is Earth, the tiny head. Right below, connected via Antarctica, is the second planet, Atlas, the body. And at the bottom, the massive foundation, Aupara. Look at this. This entire structure is called Gaia. The outer edges, the wastelands we haven't seen, form a hard eggshell. The inner planets, Earth, Atlas, Aupara, are the yolk. And ether, it is the egg white, the viscous fluid holding everything together, stopping this insane stacked universe from collapsing into itself. A beautiful image, isn't it? But also truly terrifying, because it means we are never alone. We are just living on the top floor of an apartment complex full of freakish neighbors. But the story isn't just about ether. If ether is order, is law, is boredom, then its enemy is Aoth. Aoth is anti-ether. It is the black blood flowing in the veins of this universe. It is concentrated most densely at the center of the earth, also known as Agartha. Sorry, Wyndon, if I just woke you up. Go back to sleep, buddy. Aoth is the source of life, of primal energy, of limitless power. Ether tries to restrain, frame, and limit everything. While Aoth wants to explode, wants to break, wants to unleash magic. It is an eternal duel, a cosmic-level Cold War, matter versus antimatter, warden versus prisoner. And us? We are ants crawling on the chessboard of that war. Are you still there? Don't turn off yet, because the dry theory part is done. Now grab your coat. We are going outside the ice wall. To go from the head Earth down to the body Atlas, you have to cross the ice wall. And no, you can't simply walk across. You need to find the cracks, the gates. First, let's come to the Sentinel Gate. Located in the south of the wall, this is where the terrain starts to become wrong. No longer permafrost blocks. Instead, they are flat, wet marshlands, scattered with stagnant ponds of black water. And the inhabitants here? Forget the cute dancing happy feet penguins. In Sentinel, penguins are 2.5 meters tall. They are called Sentinel penguins. They don't waddle. They stand still, completely motionless, for hours, days on end, like deadly statues in the middle of the swamp. They watch you with the patience of a rock, and when you let your guard down, boom, they lunge forward fast as a lightning bolt. Their aggression is legendary. They hate humans, hate intrusion, and they will tear apart anyone who dares to venture into their territory. But humans, with surprising stupidity and courage, still live here. That is the CTI tribe. Crazy people, or supermen, depending on how you call them. The temperature here is enough to freeze boiling water the moment it leaves the kettle. But the CTI walk around as if they are on a Miami beach. They don't know what cold is. No coats, no heaters. Only muscle and guts. Legend has it that the first people to find this place were Proto-Yagan sailors. They got lost, went through the mist, and got stuck forever. Now, their descendants divide the rule of this land under the leadership of chieftains, living alongside those monster penguins. A peaceful life in the weirdest definition possible. But Sentinel is just a gentle warm-up act. If you think giant penguins are scary, wait until you see what is waiting in the west. If you thought Sentinel Gate with its giant penguins was the worst place for a vacation, then welcome to the west of the ice wall. Put away the sunscreen and prep your weapons. We are entering the Tiger Gate. And believe me, this name isn't just for show. Unlike the deadly silence of the south, Tiger Gate is a symphony of geological violence, volcanoes, hot springs, and rugged, untamed terrains. This is where Mother Nature is in her worst temper tantrum. And who is the ruler of this insane land? Meet the Tiger del Glacier, the glacier tiger. Don't confuse them with the tigers at the zoo you usually take photos with. These guys are the long-lost cousins, pumped full of steroids, of the prehistoric saber-toothed tiger. They possess massive physiques, a terrifyingly patient ability to stalk prey for days on end, and when they decide to strike, they can launch themselves across absurd distances, a creature designed perfectly for killing. But the craziest thing isn't the tigers, it's the humans living here. The indigenous inhabitants of Tiger Gate don't run from these monsters. They fight them. That's right, you heard me. There are colonies here, mostly descendants of the Spanish and a few lost British groups. where the king of sports isn't football, but gladiatorial combat with saber-toothed tigers. These people are illogically strong. They are born to fight. They don't use modern firearms. Their weapons are crafted from obsidian, the sharpest volcanic glass on the planet, which is abundant in the ground here. They wear the skins of the very beasts they kill. That is the loudest statement of power. I ate the flesh of the monster that wanted to eat me. There is an interesting thing about the culture here. They absolutely hate pirates. If you are a Jack Sparrow-type pirate planning to come here to find treasure or hide out, don't. They despise pirates to the bone and will chase you away, or worse, turn you into tiger bait the moment you set foot on shore. A community of hardened, uncompromising fishermen and hunters. Leaving the fire and stone of the west, we drift towards the east, to a place where death lurks beneath every wave, the Leviathan Gate. If Tiger Gate is an arena, then Leviathan Gate is a giant watery grave. Look at the terrain here. The mountains aren't just mountains. They look like teeth clenched tight, ready to chew up any foolish ship that dares to pass. The currents here are incredibly violent, fluctuating constantly as if the ocean is having a seizure. And beneath that surface, oh, that is where the real nightmares begin. This gate is named after the Leviathan, the sea monster from the Bible, and for good reason. This sea is crawling with mosasaurs, mutated whales with grotesque shapes, and actual leviathans. You can hear their calls, a haunting sound echoing through the hull of the ship, reminding you that you are just a tiny appetizer. This is the no-fly zone of the ocean, a deadly trap for inexperienced sailors. However, humans, that stubborn species, still cling on here. The residents of Leviathan Gate are mostly descendants of the French and Scandinavians, Nordic. Think of Viking descendants who are used to the sea trying to kill them every day. They live on jagged, rough lands, where every day spent fishing is a gamble with the reaper. They aren't afraid, or perhaps they are just too used to looking into the eyes of a Leviathan and saying, "Not today." We have passed the swamp of living statues, the inferno of saber-toothed tigers, and the sea of monsters. You think you've seen all the weirdness of Atlas? Big mistake. Because in the north, there is a place completely different. A place unlike any terrain I just mentioned. A place where the ground looks like stalactites growing upside down and mystery covers everything. The most common gate, but also possibly the gate leading to the hardest truths to swallow. All right, adjust your compass. We are heading north. When I say north, what image pops into your head? Santa Claus, red-nosed reindeers, or boring icebergs floating aimlessly in fizzy fresh water? Wipe those images away, because the final gate, and also the most common entrance leading to Atlas, is a slap in the face to everything you ever learned in geography class. Welcome to the Serpent Gate. What are you seeing here? Grass, endless meadows, right at the edge of the northern ice wall. Theoretically, this thing shouldn't exist here. But remember the lesson about ether at the start of the video. The further you go from the center of our Earth, the looser reality becomes. The laws of physics start taking a coffee break. The terrain at Serpent Gate is completely different from its three brothers. It isn't flat like Sentinel, not volcanic like Tiger, and not flooded like Leviathan. It looks more like an alien planet. Look at these structures. They are stalactites, but instead of hanging from a cave ceiling, they grow up from the ground. Sharp rock spikes, bizarre mounds scattered everywhere as if the ground is breaking out in warts. This scene is both majestic and evokes a deep sense of unease. Like you are walking inside the gut of a giant monster, not on the surface of a planet. And the name Serpent? Although I haven't gone deep into the creatures here yet, look at the pattern. Sentinel has giant penguins, Tiger has saber-toothed tigers. Leviathan has sea monsters. You don't need to be Sherlock Holmes to guess what is slithering beneath those tall grasses that are higher than a person's head. The snakes here certainly aren't the kind you can keep in a glass tank in your living room. So we have the fugitive's map in hand. South, Sentinel, where murderous penguin statues guard the swamp. West, Tiger, a prehistoric version of the Colosseum with lava and saber-toothed tigers. East, Leviathan, an oceanic grave where even whales have to be afraid. North, Serpent, the land of inverted stalactites and mysteries lurking in the grass. 4 gates, 4 cracks in Gaia's eggshell. They are natural filters, ensuring that only the craziest, strongest, or luckiest can leave the kindergarten of Earth to step down into the adult world. Atlas. But crossing the gate is just the beginning. Remember what I said about Aoth and Ether. When you step through these gates, you are leaving the safe zone of dense ether. You are entering the territory of Atlas. Here, the ether is thinner. And what does that mean? It means your normal is worthless here. In Atlas, spirituality isn't a scam. Prophecy, telepathy, seeing ghosts, all the things earth science mocks, here they work powerfully, like a full-bar 5G signal. Reality in Atlas is looser, more malleable. Civilizations here don't just develop based on technology or muscle. They develop based on understanding this flow of energy. We have traveled a long journey from the Penguin Swamp to the Leviathan Sea, but up until now, we have only been talking about the shell. Now, let's talk about the filling. Let's talk about why you were born in this cage and not down there, where magic flows like spring water. Look at the palm of my hand. One side is ether, order, structure, limitation. One side is Aoth, life energy, pure magic, infinity. This isn't a battle between good and evil. This is a battle between stability and chaos. At the center of the earth, in the legendary land of Agartha, the concentration of Aoth is so high, it can turn a normal person into a god. But precisely because of that, the dense ether shell around Earth acts like a filter. It prevents that power from erupting excessively. Why? Because if Aoth wins completely, reality would melt. You would no longer be you. I would no longer be me. Everything would become a chaotic mess of will and energy. But if ether wins absolutely, we would become biological robots, living a bland life, without souls, without miracles. We are living at the cruelest equilibrium point, a perfect prison, where we have enough freedom to think we are free, but too little magic to actually break the chains. Now, do you understand why we still occasionally see Bigfoot or wandering spirits? It's not a hallucination. Those are entities from the ethereal realm. They exist outside the boundaries of ether. Sometimes due to a certain vibration, or because the ether concentration at a specific point thins out, they fall into our reality, but they can't stay long. This thick layer of ether is like salt water to a freshwater fish. It burns them, forcing them to return to where reality is looser. Down in Atlas, these things are normal, but here they are called paranormal phenomena. Ironically, we call the fullest world weird, and call our deficient cage normal. This video isn't for everyone. There will be those who laugh, thinking this is the product of a tinfoil hatter or an overgrown guy with an overactive imagination. Science can't prove it, they will scream. But what is their science? Isn't it just the study of the laws inside this ether cage? How can you use the rules of the prison to deny the existence of the world outside the wall? The map is spread out, the gates are revealed. Atlas is waiting right beneath your feet, separated by a layer of ice and a bit of courage to abandon the fake sanity. Still not asleep? Good, because the things I'm about to tell you will keep you up all night, or at least make you afraid to look in the bathroom mirror. Let's start with the entrance. Tiger Gate and Serpent Gate. Sounds pretty badass, right? But believe me, the name Serpent Gate isn't a metaphor. It is literal. Brutally literal. The waters here are the private swimming pool of the labyrinth snakes, giant winding monsters, scales sparkling like disco LEDs. Sailors who see them often exclaim, "Oh, so beautiful," and then, "Ah!" the sound of being crushed for a snack, a deadly beauty, just like your bank account at the end of the month. But humans being humans, throw them into hell, and they'll throw a BBQ party. Here we have the Serpentes tribe. Their fashion sense? Pretty edgy. They wear the skins and scales of the very monsters they kill. Imagine walking down the street with a cloak made from your enemy's skin. "Hey Zorro, nice coat. Where'd you buy it?" "Oh, I just hunted a 50-meter python this morning. Sewed it right up." Cool, but a bit fishy. And nature's biggest joke? Serpent Gate is dubbed the easiest passage to enter Atlas. If dodging giant man-eating eels is easy, then I kindly decline whatever is called hard. Alright, look at the clock. It's nearly 2 a.m. and I'm trying to stay awake here. We are going to tour counterclockwise. Why? Because in Atlas, even the clock hands are too lazy to run the right way. First destination, Thoth, the nomadic continent. Why nomadic? Because this continent has ADHD. It refuses to stand still. It physically moves across the ocean, orbiting the ice wall like a piece of sushi on a giant conveyor belt. One rotation takes 1,500 years. Sounds as slow as a crawling turtle, but for a landmass the size of a continent, that is some enthusiastic drifting. The inhabitants here, a mixed hot pot. South Americans arrived here 8,000 years ago, and our golden friend Ferdinand Magellan too. History books say he died in the Philippines? Dead wrong. The rumor in Atlas is he groped his way here in the 1500s. But Magellan's ending here is the peak of misfortune. He didn't die from monsters, didn't die from a strange disease. He was injured because of a maritime traffic accident. His boat was rammed by some reckless driver captain, causing Magellan to be thrown into the rudder and suffer a concussion. A legendary explorer, overcoming thousands of miles of wind and waves only to be rear-ended in the middle of the ocean. If there was life insurance back then, the insurance company would probably refuse to pay out because the reason was too ridiculous. Thoth looks chill, lush green trees, cool rivers, but don't let appearances fool you. See that bush over there? That's a bead. Looks like a kangaroo, but it's a version that went through John Wick's assassin training course. Fast, silent, and brutal, or look up at the sky. Terror birds. The name says it all. These prehistoric chickens won't crow cock-a-doodle-doo. They will peck your skull open like a watermelon. And the final boss, Haru, an armored bear. Yes, you heard that right. Nature looked at a bear and thought, not tough enough, let's install chitin armor on it to make it look like a tank. Wonderful. Now, playing dead is useless against it too. Leaving that hyperactive continent, we come to Men and Nevis, the island of deceptions. This place is for those with trust issues. Here, plants look like animals, and animals look like plants. You see a soft rock and want to sit down for a rest? Chomp! Congratulations, you just sat in a monster's mouth. You see a beautiful flower and want to smell it? Snap! There goes your nose. The ecosystem here operates on the motto, surprise, betch. Sailors avoid this place, and I advise you shouldn't book a vacation ticket here either, unless you want to play Russian roulette with your life. And right next to that, is the Avalon's archipelago. Where are the fans of Lord of the Rings or Game of Thrones? Roll call. This is your holy land. Rumor has it Avalon's was founded by the Camelot Guild. Yes, King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table. When they lost power, they didn't disband. They just transferred their household registration down to Antarctica. When Avalon separated from the ice wall drifting south, the ice melted and left behind a world straight out of a fairy tale. The horror version. Thick fog, moss covering the paths. And the residents? They still live like it's the year 1000. Iron armor, shields, spears, and fighting all day long. No Wi-Fi, no TikTok, just slaughter and honor. Creatures here? Dragons. Giant beasts living in trees. A medieval cosplay fair, but using real weapons and real monsters. King Arthur is surely sitting somewhere, stroking his beard and smirking at our modern world. Beneath Avalon's is Arthonia, the land of Merlin. Big forests, deep valleys, and Neanderthal-like people living in tents. Basically the slums of the wizarding world. But wait, look far out there. Do you see that sparkling light? Not neon lights. That is Des Boga. A place crazier than everything I just told you. But to get there, we need to take a breather. I need a shot of strong liquor to swallow these truths. We were in the middle of talking about Des Boga. Forget tropical islands with white sand and yellow sunshine. Des Boga is a magnificent nightmare made entirely of crystal. The rocks here aren't lifeless stones. They are giant energy batteries. Under the light of the Atlas sun, this entire land turns into a giant kaleidoscope. Light refracts, reflects, and dances so frantically that without protective gear, you will go permanently blind after just a few minutes of sightseeing. But the most interesting thing doesn't lie in the glowing rocks. It lies in what is hidden underneath. Remember the interrupted text? Ruins of great civilizations. Yes, those aren't Greek stone pillars. Those are ruins of technology. The people who once lived in Des Boga reached the pinnacle of civilization. They mined energy from this very crystal Mother Earth. But then what? They disappeared. Boom. Evaporated. There is a theory that they played with things beyond their control. The energy here is too vast. It's like trying to charge an iPhone with a nuclear power plant's power source. The result is absolute destruction. Now, Des Boga is just a glittering graveyard where greedy people come to find treasure and usually die from energy poisoning or getting lost in the maze of light. An expensive lesson for humanity. Don't mess with glowing rocks. But anyway, leave that giant chandelier. Let's turn the wheel. We will go to a more realistic place. And when I say realistic, I mean truly terrifying. Welcome to Unga, the continent of giants. If you feel small before the universe, then coming to Unga, you will feel small before the locals' breakfast. Unga is where Darwin's theory of evolution seems to have drunk too much growth hormone. Everything here is big. Trees, skyscraping, wild beasts, dinosaur size, and humans? Oh, calling them humans is a bit of an insult to the dictionary. They are titans. Imagine guys 3 to 4 meters tall, muscles rippling like walking boulders. They don't build castles. They don't write poetry. They hunt. And guess what the favorite item on the menu is? Anything small and slow-moving. For example, normal humans from the old Earth. Explorers who have passed through the waters of Unga tell horrifying stories. Ships lifted out of the water like toys in a bathtub. Sailors captured as slaves or worse, as appetizers. The tribes in Unga are very warlike. They don't welcome tourists with flower garlands. They welcome them with spears as big as utility poles. Here, strength is the only law. If you can't punch a rock to pieces, you don't have the right to speak. But the scariest thing in Unga isn't just the size, it is the brutal primitiveness. They remind us of a time when humans, or things resembling humans, stood at the top of the food chain, not thanks to intellect, but thanks to pure muscle power. And you know what? There are rumors that these giants are the descendants of the Nephilim in the Bible, those who were banished from the old world. They found their way here, where they could continue to be overlords without fear of being drowned by a flood. But Unga is not yet the weirdest thing. Oh no. If Unga is the wild past, then our next destination is a cold, artificial future. Look towards the horizon. Do you see those geometrically perfect structures that are absurdly flawless? Not a scratch, not a speck of dust, and the residents there, everyone has the exact same face. We are approaching Strategos, but be careful. Don't let them see you. If they detect your imperfection, you will wish you were dinner for the giants in Unga instead. Yeah, I need to check my weapons again and adjust my face to look a little less human. See you in the next part. Shh, be quiet. If you sneeze here, you are dead for sure. We are in Strategos, and welcome to the nightmare of perfection. Look down at the square below. What do you see? Thousands of soldiers training. But look closely. Their faces. The first person looks exactly like the second person. The second person looks exactly like the 1,000th person. Not twins. They are a copy-paste society. Ctrl plus C, Ctrl plus V. A mass human production line. In Strategos, the concept of individual is a crime. This is the pinnacle of extreme eugenics. They have removed every weak gene, every surplus emotion like fear, love, or compassion. What remains are biological machines programmed for war and discipline. They don't have names, they have numbers, they don't have dreams, they have missions. Think about it, a society with no conflict, no arguments, no drama on social media sounds peaceful, right? Wrong. It's terrifying as hell. That is the peace of a morgue. If you smile at the wrong time, you are considered a product defect and taken away for disposal immediately. The people here hate outsiders, filthy and imperfect people like us. To them, we are bacteria that need to be sterilized. Let's leave this shiny concentration camp right now before they detect the smell of my cheap perfume. Ah, breathe it in. Can you smell it? The smell of gunpowder, the smell of stale rum, and the smell of freedom. Or, more accurately, the smell of chaos. Welcome to the Free Republic, also known as the navel of the criminal universe. If Strategos is a clean mental hospital, then this place is a shabby bar at 3 a.m. on a Saturday, where everyone is drunk and everyone has a gun. This is the shelter for outcasts from all over Atlas. Pirates, escapees from Strategos, if lucky enough to survive. Giants kicked out of Unga for being too gentle. All flock here. Laws? None. Taxes? Don't make me laugh. The only rule, whoever draws their gun faster is right. But don't let the ragged appearance fool you. The Free Republic is a formidable force. Because they have nothing to lose. They fight like wild beasts. They hate Strategos to the bone. It is the eternal war between absolute order and absolute chaos. Me, Zorro, I prefer it here. At least if someone wants to kill you, they will scream in your face first instead of silently injecting poison like those clones. But I don't dare stay long either. My wallet just evaporated after 5 minutes standing at the dock. We have to move on. Leaving behind the wars of humans and human-like things, we will enter the spiritual land, where the boundary between life and death is thin as a rolling paper. Ahead is the land of reborn pharaohs and the darkest secrets of human history. The old gods didn't die. They just moved to Atlas. Brace yourselves. because the final part will explain why our Earth is hidden behind the ice wall. The truth, it's much more brutal than you think. We have come full circle. From the sea serpents at Tiger Gate, through the drifting continent Thoth, to the dragon knights and Avalons, and dodging bullets in that criminal den, the Free Republic. But the biggest question still remains. Why? Why does the ice wall exist? Why are we 8 billion so-called civilized people locked inside this tiny circle in the middle of this map? No. To answer, we have to go to the final point of the journey. Not a land, but a concept. Welcome to the custodian zone. You think the ice wall was built to protect us from the monsters outside? Ha! So naive, my friend. Do you build a fence around a chicken coop to protect the chickens from the fox? Yes. But more importantly, you build a fence so the chickens don't escape before slaughter time. We, the residents of the known world, are that chicken coop. Look back at what we just saw out there. In Atlas, magic is real. Technology is 1,000 years ahead of us. Their lifespans last for centuries. And us? We are locked in here, fed fake historical knowledge, fenced in by ice and no-fly treaties. We are forced to believe we are unique, the center of the universe, while in reality, we are just a quarantine zone. Maybe our ancestors were the most dangerous beings in the universe, so they were locked in here? Or maybe we are just a biological experiment, a giant petri dish for the custodians to study conflict, disease, and greed. Think about this tomorrow morning when you wake up to go to work, pay rent, and worry about gas prices. Out there, right across the ice wall, giants are riding dinosaurs, witches are controlling the weather, and immortal humans are living in crystal cities. They know we are here. They are watching us, and they are laughing. They laugh because we fight each other for every meter of land in this tiny cage, while a vast, infinite universe, Terra Infinita, is waiting out there. The truth isn't beautiful like a fairy tale. It's cold, it's cruel, but at least now you know. You are no longer the obedient sheep that only knows how to bow its head and eat grass. You are the sheep that looked up and saw the fence. And once you have seen the fence, the next step is finding a way to jump over it. If you guys think we have seen all the madness of this world, then buckle up. Because today, I will take you through the ice wall, to places that Google Maps never dared to draw. We aren't just talking about new lands. We are talking about nightmares wrapped in the sugary coating of paradise. Let's start this insane journey. First, let me introduce you to the Crystal Island. A name that sounds so luxurious and sparkling, right? But don't be fooled. Nobody knows a damn thing about its origin. It just hovers there like nature's tease. But we won't stay there long because more interesting and deadlier things lie a bit further away. Welcome to the Islands of the Blessed. Listen to that name, Blessed. How sweet. Like a place you would take your family for a vacation and drink coconut cocktails by the beach. But let me tell you the naked truth. That name is a blatant lie, or a dark joke by whoever named it. These islands are a mess. They are unrelated to each other geographically, culturally, or humanly. The only common point is that they coexist in one area, like a miscellaneous storage room that God threw together randomly. But what is the scariest thing here? It is the freakish abundance. Imagine this. You sow a seed in the ground. In our normal world, you have to water, fertilize, and wait wearily for a whole year. Here, in just a few days, that seed will turn into a giant tree, towering and blocking out the sky. You think that's wonderful? mistake. It is a biological disaster. Look at the island named Dro. This is not a place to live. This is a green prison. The undergrowth here is so dense that no creature, including humans, can squeeze through. The entire island is a giant tumor of leaves, roots, and tangled vines. Humans, with their inherent arrogance, once tried to conquer it. What did they do? They burned. They set fire to burn down the vegetation to clear a path. A plan that sounds reasonable, right? But Dro laughed in their faces. Within just one day, I repeat, one day, the entire forest grew back exactly as before, even denser, as if mocking the pathetic efforts of humans. This island doesn't die. It is immortal, and it refuses your invasion. And if you think Dro is the worst, visit Malendantes or bamboo chests. Names that sound poetic, but in reality are labyrinths of seagrass and giant bamboo forests. And then there are other islands, home to giant flowers. Beautiful? Perhaps. Until you realize next to them are Venus flytraps the size of a car, ready to swallow anything stupid enough to step close to smell that seductive scent. The islands of the blessed are famous for their amazing scents and flavors. But mark my words, Zorro here never trusts things that smell too good. In nature, the more colorful, the more fragrant, the more poisonous. This is a giant mousetrap camouflaged with flowers and sweet nectar. Now, let's leave that man-eating Garden of Eden. We will move at the speed of light. I know, a bit dizzying, but history waits for no one, to reach the next continent, Terra and Kabola. If you are a fan of Jurassic Park, but felt the dinosaurs in it weren't intense enough, then this is the place for you. People call it the land of the lizards. And no, I'm not talking about the tiny geckos clinging to your house wall. Picture a tropical region, like the Caribbean but pumped with steroids. Stunning landscapes, fertile soil, and crawling with lizards. They are everywhere. From tiny colorful lizards to giant monsters. Wingless dragons strutting around like the true bosses of this land. Think about Komodo dragons, but bigger, more aggressive, and more numerous. But the most interesting thing isn't the reptiles, it's the humans living with them. They are called the Nashi Voyo people. According to ancient documents, things that mainstream historians would certainly want to burn. These people originated from our island of Madagascar. How did they get here? That is a question for another day. What makes me, Zorro, feel interested is how they live. They don't run from the lizards. They hunt them, raise them, and live with them. There are extremely freakish lizard species here. There is a species called tattoo lizards, with patterns on their skin as beautiful as artistic paintings. There is the skin-shedding lizard. Just hearing it makes my hair stand on end. Their mating behaviors and life rituals are so complex and vivid that you will ask yourself if they are developing a civilization of their own. And speaking of civilization, the society of the Nashi Voyo is a slap in the face to ancient patriarchs. Although on the outside, they look like primitive tribes, living in harmony with wild nature. Their political thinking is surprisingly progressive. In Terra and Kabola, women are the real bosses. Gender equality here isn't an empty slogan. Women own land, hold assets, run farms, and have the decisive voice. While men are busy hunting those giant dragons out there, women are holding the economy. An interesting division of labor, right? A matriarchal society in the heart of a reptile monster horde. That is the irony I love in this history. A place that looks barbaric, full of monsters, has a social ideology far more civilized than many modern nations we know. But don't celebrate yet. We are only at the edge of madness. What lies behind the ice wall isn't just carnivorous plants and giant lizards. We are about to enter lands where time is bent, and prehistoric creatures still walk the earth as if the meteor never fell. Are you ready to face the real monsters? Or headless creatures that can think? Welcome back to this crazy roller coaster. If you thought the previous part with the lizards and carnivorous plants was the peak, I regret to inform you, you are vastly mistaken. We are just warming up. Now, take a deep breath, because we are about to step through the Leviathan gate to a place where human history is completely turned upside down. Look down below the ice wall. Welcome to Poya, or Pia, depending on how you want to call it. This is the first prehistoric continent we encounter. And who were the first people to find it? Columbus? Magellan? No. It was explorers from the Ottoman Empire. Let's stop for a second to imagine this scene. Ottoman soldiers with turbans and curved swords, stepping off the ship, and the first thing they see isn't gold or spices, but a giant brontosaurus chewing leaves right in front of them. Sounds like a cheap Hollywood B-movie, right? But here, it is history. Poya is exactly what you see in prehistoric movies, but 100 times more brutal. Dense jungles, stinking swamps, and scorching deserts. The animals here, they are living tanks. You have creatures like Ankylosaurus, called pangolin, trudging on the plains with club-like tails ready to smash anything that bothers them. Under the swamps, giant crocodiles, big as combat canoes, swim upstream. And in the trees, not monkeys, giant lemurs the size of a grown man, leaping through the foliage. If you've seen King Julian in the cartoon, imagine him as big as the Rock and able to rip you apart. That's not all. On the ground are horned frogs as big as hounds, and in the sky, giant birds blocking out the sun. But the real vandal of this land is the giant boar. They aren't just big, they dig. They dig frantically underground like giant earthworms, creating deadly sinkholes and valleys. You are walking. Boom! The ground collapses and you become lunch for a prehistoric pig. The residents here are a cultural hot pot. Descendants of Ottomans, Asians, Europeans, Americans, all gathered here, surviving amidst ancient monsters. A society forged by extreme survival. Now, let's leave that scorching land and move up above Pattaya. We arrive at a massive landmass with an area comparable to Europe, Zura. If Poya is an action movie, then Zura is a heavy psychological horror movie. The deeper you go into the structure of the earth, the looser reality becomes. And Zura is exactly where the veil of reality is torn apart. People call this place God's Deception, a name that carries no good omens at all. Why? Because you can't believe your eyes here. The physical world in Zura is distorted. You see a magnificent city in the distance. Walk there and you will realize there is nothing. You see a safe path. Step onto it and you might fall into an abyss. Thick fog covers temperate forests, creating a mysterious curtain hiding the most terrible things. And the most terrible thing I want to talk about is the master of this land, the blime species, Zeroblim. This is the first non-human sentient creature we mention. And their appearance? Brace yourselves. They have no heads. That's right, you heard me. No head on the neck at all. Their face, eyes, nose, mouth, is located right on the torso, in the chest position. Imagine you are talking to someone, and instead of looking into their eyes, you are staring at their chest, because the mouth is moving there. Freakish, bizarre, and extremely intelligent. They are the rulers of these islands, sentient creatures living in a world of illusions. The environment in Zura is equally trippy. Mysterious giant mushrooms grow everywhere. But be careful. Don't be foolish enough to taste them. These mushrooms don't just affect your body if you eat them, but their very presence changes the surrounding environment, creating wide-range hallucinogenic effects. Zorro is a mine trap, a beautiful, ghostly land but full of lies. You might see civilizations, people walking around, but it all might just be an illusion created by this land to swallow you whole. Here, the question isn't, will you survive, but will you remain sane? But if you think the headless blime species is the weirdest thing, wait until we meet creatures that always have to live in pairs and affectionate hybrid monsters in the next part. Don't take your eyes off the screen. The madness has only just begun. We are going deeper into this rabbit hole. If you feel dizzy with heads growing on chests, then prepare your mind, because the next land will make you think you are hallucinating or drunk. Grip the steering wheel tight. We are arriving at Gineia. Gineia is the second largest landmass we encounter today, but size isn't what makes it scary. What makes Gineia a nightmare for the faint-hearted is its freakish rule. Everything exists in pairs. Imagine you are walking and see a majestic mountain. You turn your head to the side and boom! Another mountain exactly the same, as if someone used the Photoshop copy-paste command on nature. No deviation, no uniqueness. If you meet a monster here, the bad news is you don't just have to face one. There is always a copy of it stalking somewhere. A pair of predators, a pair of poisonous plants, a pair of troubles. Double the fun, people often say, but in Gineia, it is double the horror. But amidst this bizarre and maddeningly symmetrical world, there exists a species that makes even my skeptical heart flutter. That is the Zorro people, Zorro beings. Picture a creature that is the result of a secret affair between a hippo and an elephant. Stumpy legs, a long trunk in front, and bulky tusks. They look ridiculous, don't they? But don't laugh yet. The Zorro people are the only non-human sentient creatures possessing a soul that is kind to the point of naivety. They think like humans. They want to live a normal life, do daily jobs. But ironically, creation gave them an oversized and clumsy body. They are too bulky, too many tentacles and tusks to be able to do simple things by themselves. And this is where the touching part appears. Because they are so clumsy, they are forced to help each other. They love each other as a survival mechanism. You help me pick this up, I help you do that. A society built on absolute mutual protection. But history, as I said, is a tragedy. When the Spanish found Gineia, they didn't see the humanity or love of the Zorro people. They only saw meat, ivory, and slow-moving targets. Result? A massacre. These peaceful creatures were hunted to the point of near extinction. We humans are really good at destroying beautiful things we don't understand, aren't we? Today, Gineia is home to all sorts of ethnicities from our world. Descendants of colonists, lost explorers, all living with the ghosts of the past, among strange horned fish swimming in the water and giant creatures always walking in pairs on the shore. Leaving the melancholy of Gineia, we go full circle around Atlas to reach the Serpent Gate. The name already smells of death. And lying right there is the trio of infamous lands, Disappasu, Zenonia, and Atenlai. Let's start with Disappasu. If Gineia is a romantic tragedy, then Disappasu is a violent survival action movie. This land hates you. I'm not joking. The environment here seems programmed to kill anything that dares set foot on it. Look at the coast. Rocks sharp as razors ready to rip apart ship hulls. Beaches impossible to dock at. Deadly whirlpools waiting to swallow foolish sailors. And if you are lucky, or unlucky, enough to get on shore. Welcome to the party of venomous snakes, poisonous frogs, and treacherous terrain. Because of this natural brutality, Disappasu is considered the perfect place for a single purpose: prison. Other continents use this place as a penal island. Committed a crime? Get thrown out to Disappasu. No need for guards because the island itself is the most brutal warden already. However, there are still crazy or desperate people who dare to live here. That is the Mosin people. They aren't born criminals. They are refugees. Their origins are Russia, Portugal, Spain. But the reason they drifted to this hell is the thing worth mentioning. They used to live in Zenonia. But then, they were kicked out. Kicked out by whom? A familiar name I mentioned in the previous part, the Headless obsession, the blime species. The blime war kicked these poor humans out of their homeland, pushing them to the desperate end of having to choose disappearances as home. Living among poison and sharp rocks is better than facing the monsters in Zenonia. That shows you just how terrifying the blime species is. And now let's move to the star of this region, Zenonia. Zenonia is famous far and wide not for beautiful scenery, but for its extremely aggressive fauna. Here, if it moves, it will attack you. Simple as that. But its true inhabitants are what makes history shudder. The blime species, those with heads located in their chests. A little fun fact for you bookworms. The image of the blime species in this legend is actually based on ancient human historical records about the headless men, blemies. It is interesting to see our distorted myths become terrifying reality on the other side of the ice wall. However, the story of the blime species isn't just a story of man-eating monsters. It is a story so sad it breaks your heart. When reading documents about them, I, Zorro, almost shed tears. And believe me, I don't cry easily. The story begins in 1200 BC, long before the blime species became the terrifying rulers they are now. Back then, Zenonia was home to indigenous people and explorers from all over the world. It seemed they would live in peace, but no. The indigenous population of the islands plunged into a bloody battle for survival, a fight to the death. And it was from the ashes of that war that the true tragedy of the blime species began to be written. But where did they come from? Why did they become like that? And how did that war change the fate of an entire continent? If you are still here after hearing about the headless guys in the man-eating islands, then congratulations. Your nerves of steel deserve a medal or a psychiatric evaluation ticket. We are stopping at Zenonia, right in the middle of a tragic historical story left hanging. A war from 1200 BC. And you know what? The truth is sometimes more painful than the bites of those lizards out there. Let's go back to that time. 1200 BC. Zenonia wasn't the deadly land it is now. It used to be home. But ancient records stop at a chilling sentence. The indigenous population fought a fierce battle to the death with whom or with what? Whoever the enemy was, the result of that war was the birth of a ruined world. Look at what remains. The Mosin people, normal humans, had to flee in panic. They were so terrified they accepted living in disappearances, that natural prison full of snakes and sharp rocks I told you about in the previous part. You have to ask yourself, what was so horrible that people would rather jump into a lime pit than stay in their homeland? The answer lies in the victors, the blime species. Their history brings tears to my eyes, not because of romance, but because of the utter loss. There is a theory that to survive that brutal war, to adapt to an increasingly hostile environment, they traded their very human form. The head disappeared, the face slid down to the chest, a painful transformation to protect the most vital senses, or perhaps a curse of the land itself. Zenonia today is a living memorial to the brutality of war. The creatures walking there aren't just monsters, they are deformed historical witnesses. A reminder that on the other side of the ice wall, the price of survival is sometimes your very humanity. In the trio of lands guarding the Serpent Gate, we have passed through the hell of disappearances witnessed the tragedy of Zenonia, but there is still one more name whispered in legends: Atenlai. Hidden in the shadow of its violent brothers, Atenlai is like a big question mark closing this journey. While Disappasu is a prison, Zenonia is a battlefield. What role does Atenlai play? There are rumors that it is the place hiding the final secrets that humanity isn't ready to know. A land where the laws of physics might be even looser than Zura. But like all the best horror stories, Atenlai keeps its cards close to its chest. It lies there, watching, waiting for the next foolish explorers to come knocking. And if the history of its two neighboring lands is any omen, I advise you, don't knock. So we have gone a full circle around Atlas, from the deceitful Blessed Islands, through the Ottoman Jurassic Park in Poya, to the ghostly illusions of Zura, the weird twin world of Gineia, and ending at the historical grave of Zenonia. What have you drawn from this trip? The world outside the ice wall isn't the promised land. It isn't a paradise waiting for us to explore. It is a wild, brutal, and ancient ecosystem. There, reality is bent. There, time doesn't run in a straight line. There, civilizations rise and fall in silence, leaving behind freakish sequelae like the blime species or the Nashivoyo humans living with dragons. We, the humans living in the safety circle of the known world, often consider ourselves the pinnacle of evolution. But looking at this map, looking at creatures like the kind Zato or the intense vitality of the Dro jungle, I realize we are just children playing in a carefully fenced playground. Out there is an ocean of monsters and dark miracles. And maybe, just maybe, the ice wall existing there isn't to imprison us, but to protect us from the things walking out there. We are talking about Zenonia. Before becoming the resort paradise it is today, Zenonia was a giant slaughterhouse. Imagine a world where chaos was the only law. Tribe slaughtered tribe, family purged family. No alliances, no peace, only axes and nooses. They say in Zenonia back then, you woke up and the first thing you did was check if your head was still attached to your neck. But, oh my naive friends, that was just the gentle prelude. The real horror only began when he arrived. A powerful, mysterious, and completely insane entity. The only name he left to history is Spath, spelled S-F-T-T-H. Don't ask me the correct pronunciation, unless you want to summon a demon. Spath didn't come to save. He came to rule. And his management style? An iron fist wrapped in a glove of madness. Spath looked at the chaos of Zenonia and thought, well, these guys need discipline. And his discipline was torture. It was public executions. It was heads rolling on the ground as numerous as stones. He wanted all of Zenonia to kneel. He was an alien entity, or at least someone with power far beyond the understanding of humans at that time. So, in his twisted mind, he had the right to do so. He wanted to play God. But this is where the story shifts from a war movie to the body horror genre. Spath was obsessed with beheading. He did it constantly, over decades, over centuries. And life, in the most ironic and cruel way, always finds a way. Under the pressure of Spath's axe, the people of Zenonia didn't go extinct. They changed. Take a deep breath. Have you ever heard of the book All Tomorrows, where humans are genetically modified into monstrous creatures? Zenonia is the real-life version of that nightmare. To survive Spath's axe, the bodies of the people here began to evolve. The head, Spath's favorite target, gradually atrophied. Instead, their faces moved down to the torso. That was the birth of the blime species. They were no longer weak humans. They were biological machines forged through hundreds of years of torture. No weak neck to be chopped, no exposed weak points. The blime species were tall, muscular, agile, and incredibly strong. Bone plates hard as steel grew in vital places. Spath, in his bloodlust, inadvertently created a perfect warrior race, a species born from pain, and more importantly, they no longer wanted to be controlled. And do you know what happens when a god realizes his sheep have turned into monsters? He was terrified. Spath looked at the blime creatures, twisted, unnatural entities, things that were once human but were now the embodiment of brute force. And he realized he had gone too far. He didn't create a kingdom of submission. He created a land of monsters, an unstoppable army. Instead of fighting to the end like a great conqueror, what did Spath do? He ran away. He hid in shame, leaving behind a Zenonia full of vengeful, headless creatures. The creator left the chessboard, but his monstrous pawns remained, and they were very, very angry. You think that when the tyrant runs away, peace will instantly bloom on the graves? Oh no, so naive. In history, whether it's our history or that of the world outside the ice wall, a power vacuum is always filled with blood. When Spath, that cowardly lord, packed up and ran away in fear of his own creation, he left Zenonia in a state of deep division. On one side were the blime species, evolved, powerful, headless creatures. On the other side were the headed ones, those lucky or unlucky, enough to keep their original human form. And guess what? They hated each other bitterly. A bloody civil war broke out. But let's be realistic. This wasn't a fair fight. On one side were normal, fragile, breakable humans with weak necks. On the other side were biological tanks of flesh and bone, tall, designed by torture to withstand the most critical blows. The blime species weren't just stronger, they were faster and better adapted to violence. The result was the inevitability of natural selection. The blime species won absolutely. They wiped the headed ones off the archipelago. The losers were forced into exile, drifting to other harsh lands. Some drifted to the prison islands I mentioned before. Honestly, I have a bit of sympathy for them. Imagine keeping your head only to realize it doesn't help at all when facing a giant with a face located on its chest. But anyway, wipe the crocodile tears aside. That was the story of decades ago. Welcome to modern Zenonia. Look, how ironic. The land that used to be a slaughterhouse, used to be the birthplace of nightmare monsters, is now a resort paradise? That's right, you didn't mishear. In modern times, Zenonia is the definition of peace. Mild climate, stretching beaches, majestic deserts, lush jungles. It has everything you need for a 5-star vacation, except your tour guide might be a 3-meter tall creature with an eye located between 2 pectoral muscles. The blime species, after winning, didn't become new tyrants. On the contrary, they became extremely peaceful. They share culture and customs with headed people. Of course, tourists or new residents, not old enemies. They became the symbol of this land. In the community of enthusiasts of the world beyond the ice wall, the blime species are now considered legends. They look super cool, super dope. From victims of torture, they became gentle masters of paradise. That is an interesting history lesson, isn't it? Sometimes, things that look the scariest are the most peaceful, just because they have tasted enough brutality to appreciate silence. But don't let this piece lull you to sleep for too long, because we are about to leave Zenonia. We have gone almost a full circle around the Atlas map, and the final obstacle, the final great land is waiting. Prepare your ears, because the next place isn't just for looking, but for listening. We have traveled almost a full circle around Atlas, from deadly lands, through paradises of the Headless, and now the final obstacle before closing this circle of death. Aten, or also known by the flowery name, the Grand Orchestra. If Zenonia is where you go to find peace after the storm, then Aten is where you go to spend money, or be swallowed by suffocating luxury. This is considered the richest land in recorded natural history. Take a deep breath. Do you smell anything? Not the smell of sulfur, not the smell of bloody gore. It is the smell of affluence, the smell of exotic flowers and grasses, and somewhere, faintly, the smell of bottomless greed. Why is it called the Grand Orchestra? Because this damn continent is never silent. But it isn't noisy like a broken market. It is music. They say the wind here doesn't blow, it composes. The sound of rustling leaves, the sound of wind threading through ravines, and especially the birds. The birds in Aten sing melodies so beautiful that they could make a butcher shed tears. This entire continent is a giant opera house of Mother Nature. Sounds romantic, but try imagining trying to sleep while the tree next to you keeps humming the Moonlight Sonata. Extremely annoying. But the beauty of Aten is just a sugary coating. Look closely at the inhabitants here. Who do you expect to live in this fairy tale land? Beautiful fairies? Forget it. The indigenous inhabitants of Aten are the embodiment of the darkest fairy tale pages the Brothers Grimm ever wrote, but didn't dare publish. They are goblins, gnomes, orcs, and stingy, hoarding leprechauns. They are short, yes, but don't let height fool you. Their bodies are full of mysterious powers and ancient magic. They have human intellect, but their nature is completely alien. They speak languages that would break your tongue if you tried to pronounce them, and they live in a society stratified based on power and wealth. You can find them in safe tropical coastal areas, enjoying a luxurious life. But going deep inland, that is a one-way ticket to hell. The guts of Aten are scattered with deserts and deadly, dangerous areas. This is the dwelling place of things that aren't poetic at all. Giant rats as big as wolves, giant lizards stalking in the shadows, ostrich-like creatures but as fierce as velociraptors. But the real stars of Aten are still the birds. Here, birds aren't tiny fluff balls perched on your shoulder. They are gigantic. They are the rulers of the sky, and their beautiful singing is sometimes a funeral march for the unlucky prey below. Aten is a perfect contradiction. Absurdly beautiful, filthy rich, heartbreakingly good music, but full of freakish creatures and magical dwarfs ready to turn you into a toad if you accidentally step on their lawn. We have seen wealth, seen magic, seen monsters. But standing at the edge of Aten, looking out at the vast ocean leading towards the ice wall, you will realize that what is on land is just child's play compared to what is swimming beneath that water. Don't let the beauty of Aten fool you, and definitely don't be foolish enough to dip your feet in the water. Around these final lands, Zenonia and Aten, the ocean isn't a place for swimming. It is a playground for prehistoric nightmares. The closer you get to the ice wall, the more everything becomes absurdly large. Look down there. Do you see those shadows? Those are giant horned whales, creatures looking like ancient Mosasaurus but overdosed on steroids. They lurk there, waiting for a stray boat. And that's not all. The sea surface is scattered with giant whirlpools and geological cracks, as if the ocean is trying to swallow itself. And so, ladies and gentlemen, we have gone a full circle. We have skimmed through the strangest civilizations beneath our world. I know what you are thinking. Hey Zorro, what about Atlantis? Where is Asgard? You forgot those legendary lands. Calm down. I didn't forget. I know they are there. I have read all about them. But listen, If I crammed everything, from Atlantis, Asgard to the frozen or toxic wastelands out there, into this video, it would be 10 hours long. And honestly, I would have to be hospitalized for exhaustion before I could hit the upload button. This video is like a tasting menu. I give you the tastiest, strangest bites to stimulate your taste buds. It is now 3:09 a.m. My brain is currently mush like porridge. I feel a bit dizzy, as if I am actually drifting in the past, but I love this feeling. Of course, all of this isn't real. At least I don't believe it is real. But it is a great exercise for the imagination. It stimulates the crazy curiosity in us. If you want to dive deeper, want to know every single detail, go down to the description. Find the wiki of the world beyond the ice wall, or watch videos by Italian PNC. Those are the real treasures containing the core of this lore system. What I did today is just a roadmap. But if you want me to continue, if you want me to venture into even crazier lands, down to Aupara, crossing volcanic and toxic wastelands where things truly get bad and dangerous, leave a like. That is the only way for me to know you want to see part 2. And before ending, I have to say this. Thank you. I have rambled too much. This video is way too long. I am Zorro. Hope you enjoyed this little outing to the world beyond the ice wall. Now I'm going to sleep. Wish you a wonderful day or night.